Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Eli as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen here on Spotify off of the Hunky Dory album. Apparently this is the 2015 remaster of this David Bowie song titled Life on Mars. At 384 million plays, it's got quite a lot of attention. Sounds like it's gonna be a good time. We're gonna listen through it from start to finish and we're gonna hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. What do we got?
It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair, but her mummy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go, but her friend is nowhere.
Our use of vocal harmonies here.
Now she walks through her sunken dream to the seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a sad thing for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools as they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall.
The strings are phenomenal.
Oh man, look at those cavemen go.
Interesting effect on the snare drums as well.
Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is their life on Mars?
It's an interesting effect to the compression as well. You can hear that this music is pumping. I'm not sure if that was something in the original master or if it's something that's been redone for the 2015 version, but it's definitely interesting.
It's on America's tortured brow that Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow. Now the workers have struck for fame, 'cause Lennon's on sale again. See the mice in their million hordes, from Ibiza to the Norfolk Broads. Rule Britannia is out of bounds, to my mother, my dog and clowns. But the film is a sad thing more, 'cause I wrote it 10 times or more. It's about to be
Adjustment of the right
again,
keys there.
as I ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is their life on Mars?
And great off leading off to the guitar here. So why was there ringing on the right side? Does it go into Kooks, the next track here? I'm not sure, but we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named David Bowie, titled Life on Mars off of the Hunky Dory 2015 remaster of the album. In this section, we're going to provide an overall song analysis, some vocals, and lyrics all the way through to studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? I'm trying to be a bit more sort of like aware of my hand movements and stuff when I do this stuff. It's kind of tricky to kind of focus on two things at the same time when you're so used to a certain way of doing things. I think this track is about David Bowie's observations, maybe putting themselves in the position of the girl with the mousy hair, and they're talking about their parents telling them to go and know and who to be, and they go into their own head, and they're effectively trying to find a future for themselves, look at the world around them, and they're seeing all these contradictory things. There's like a fantasy element, a wish for things to be better, but here on Earth they just see a whole lot of depravity and uncertainty and confusion and sort of like distorted elements. And I think the question of, if there's life on Mars is basically asking whether there is an alternate to the current world that we live in, whether they have to live in this sort of like place of ours. That line in particular, asking, Lennon being for sale, I think is a timely event considering that this came out in 1971. It's a bit of a spicy line, but David Bowie was a spicy musician. I think that the vocals in this track are fantastic. They're so earnest and honest from David Bowie. They're so unfiltered. He's not trying to sing a certain way where it sounds super clean and poppy and gentle and vibrant. It's very much kind of raw, and there are some interesting legato tails. Like we do show solid technique. There's a bit of vibrato occasionally. We have great sort of diversity within our expression. We know how to enmesh ourselves with the music around us, sort of facilitate the instrumental components around us, and to still have presence. And there's enough variety to keep us intrigued. And it's that charisma, that not like an overwhelming charisma, but an interest nonetheless, like a sense of uniqueness that does, especially for 1971. This is revolutionary at the time. There just probably wasn't as much music as there is now. But just this universe that David Bowie is talking about here is enthralling. They communicate that incredibly well. And they also allow a lot of room for other elements, like the lead guitarists to have their sort of own little bits and pieces there to sort of allow them to oscillate within the frequency spectrum stereo field. I just dig that. This track is 3 minutes 55, but there's absolutely no filler. There are various verses and choruses and guitar solo sections, and there's an extended outro with the kind of quietness, and then you hear the ring and you don't know why there's the sound of that Foley, but there is, which is kind of cool. Piano is such a fantastic accompaniment at the first point, because not only is it played very well, there's a lot of interesting note and chordal patterns that they play there. It's a sort of a typically traditionally supportive role, but it also adjusts itself, and there's a range of different sort of ways and phrases and speeds and patterns and cadences that it uses, especially on the right hand, with some of the arpeggios being particularly kind of like captivating. Just it's as much really adept, like it's a great partner to David Bowie's vocals, and builds up the wall around them, especially as you start to add other elements, and it continues to maintain that purpose as we go through. When we have the strings come in around like that 40-second mark, if I'm not mistaken, there the mid-range kind of burst they have brings the track to life. It's quite vibrant there, and it's a lot stronger sounding with that sort of solidity of those tones and harmonies in there. When the drums come in, I like the sound of the kit. I think the snare effects change with the kind of ping pong delay, and the crescendos going into the choruses are kind of neat. We can tell there's some interesting fills as well going between the toms. It's very rock and roll, but it's also kind of half time if I'm not mistaken. It could just be a slow tempo with normal time. It's a very earthy kind of drum tone there. It's very different to a lot of drum sounds you get nowadays where they're very full sounding. There's sort of a thin tone, I think, maybe due to the microphones or the production techniques they had at the time with the kit. The drums weren't as strong or sort of like forward in the mix. They were kind of pokey and sticky, but nonetheless, they provided a nice, reliable ground bed for things to sit and reside on when we needed in those chorus sections. And they transferred neatly when appropriate. And again, I just like this sort of subtle crescendo they had in those risers. Mixture of on-beat and syncopated parts, very comfortable with the quarters, eighths, and sixteenths. The bass is also relatively subtle. I think they did try to respect David Bowie's initial vision for the 1971 release outside of the limitations with the studio production. It was neat to hear just a well-rounded bass tone that wasn't too in your face, but that did by proxy of that have presence because you had to go and search for it. It was a really kind of wide sounding mix. The music surrounded you in the headphones from a production and composition perspective, in part due to the positions of the different instrumental layers, and how they notched themselves within the frequency spectrum. There was these interesting synth parts around like the 208 as well, 208 mark, as well as others, and they're kind of chilling in a way. It's a very sort of surreal experience. I wouldn't be surprised to hear some sort of spacey elements in a track about life on Mars, but it sort of makes it sound a bit more grandiose and theatrical. I do like the lead guitar parts, how melodic they are. I think that having the guitar mainly only appear in those breaks was sensible because it is more meaningful when it comes in. It's a different thing that you're hearing there. And that kind of tame, gentle distortion on that with the vibrato, and you know, there are chromatics and some diatonics, but they're mirroring a lot of the kind of interesting things that are occurring within the chord progressions that are quite unconventional, unpredictable, and I adore that it kind of makes it seem a bit more adventurous and experimental. That surrealism adds, I think, to what we're discussing with the lyrics. Like some of the lyrics, I just don't know how they make sense of one another, and I think that we're trying to sort of maybe explore things and try and find an overall meaning as opposed to trying to sort of have A mean something to B. But there's a peppiness with the guitar solos, some hammer-ons and pull-offs, bends and vibratos were articulate, and that we use articulation, should I say, and or both. It's just great to have an alt voice. And at the end there, when things come down, you have adjustments of the phrasing rhythmically of those string parts there. They become a bit more sort of bombastic and vivacious. But we just have this quietness at the end of the track for the last 20 seconds, which just from a structural perspective is kind of captivating there. You know why that is. And I like that I'm confused. I like that it's like, oh, have the curtains closed for a moment? Why is there the ring sound of the Foley? Ultimately, thematically though, outside of a really sort of capable performance across the board, it's this kind of major overall tonality, I think, with the key signature that works well. It's interesting because it's almost like we're trying to look for life on Mars. Like we're hopeful or optimistic that there is something beyond the current reality despite how things are going. It's interesting because the subject matter in the lyrics is not particularly happy or positive, so there's a mismatch there. I think part of that is sort of enabled by the unconventional or maybe the parallel majors or minors or the chromatics points and the modulations between certain triads. It creates a sense of surrealness or uncertainty there, and I like that David Bowie kind of made you need to listen to him in order to really get all the full picture. I think they've made a nice sounding track that's very pretty to listen to from a passive listening perspective, but if you really pay attention, you just get that bit of extra kind of special sauce, and I dig that. Things kind of click in that essence, I suppose. You can get different experiences regardless. The studio recording, mixing and mastering, I dig the fact that there is this much dynamic range to it, the difference in the quiet and loud notes. I like that David Bowie's vocals aren't overproduced. I like that they respected, as I understand it or could imagine, the initial intent of the production process back in 1971 with the limitations they had back then. It still sounded great, because that's often a risk with remasters, is that they kind of ruin the body of it or the life of it by choking it too much, trying to get it to a commercial loudness. Music surrounds you in the headphones, stereo field, like is well panned out with various elements and different bits there. We don't have everything everywhere all the time there. There's variety there, which makes the track more interesting to listen to. There's no resonant frequencies either. Things are well EQ'd and phrased and patterned. Nice and loud, bit of pumping there, bus compression limiting is handled, and ultimately just no applicable constructive critique for this one. David Bowie's a legend, and I understand why this track has 384 million plays on Spotify alone. General listener's perspective, I don't always understand David Bowie's work, but I feel like this one, maybe I've just been sleeping more, so my brain's a little bit more functional, but I was nice to sort of go through it, take the journey, and just provide more of an overall kind of thought process that made it work in tandem with everything else. I like that there's so many different angles that are represented within David Bowie's work, and it makes me feel very, very happy. Very, very happy. I like it. I know that David Bowie is past, but I'm glad that his music lives on and that people are finding and enjoying it. And apparently, as I understand it, this is Eli exploring rock music, so I wish them all the best on their adventure. There's a lot of fun stuff to try, but thank you for watching my review of this track from David Bowie titled Life on Mars off of the Hunky Dory album. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next SB Patrons video. Spiderhands out.